The Mediterranean diet's come up a few times, and people still believe that is a superior diet for people seeking health and longevity. Can you talk more to that piece and bust any myths there?
So there are two Mediterranean diets. There's the Mediterranean diet that is the actual Mediterranean. So I go to the Mediterranean at least once every year, and I've been doing it, since my parents were kind enough to take me on summer holidays. So we would go places like Yugoslavia, former Yugoslavia, which is now several different countries. We go to France, go to Malta, go to Spain, go to Portugal, go to Greece, go to Italy. So all countries that are in or bordering the Mediterranean. And the real Mediterranean diet, I would best sum up as I mentioned it with France earlier: if it moves, eat it. And they eat every animal under the sun. They eat horse, they eat rabbit, they eat quails, they eat frogs' legs, they eat snails, mussels. They just eat everything, and they eat every part of the animal as well. And they tend to eat meat quite raw or rare. So you can have sort of, steak tartane or something. I forget what it is, but my hubby loves it. And it's basically raw beef. And they'll have raw beef and eggs and that kind of thing. So what they actually eat in the Mediterranean is really quite rich in animal foods. So your breakfast would probably be eggs of some kind, yogurt, never low-fat dairy. I mean, they don't even entertain the idea of low-fat dairy. Yes, there would be some fruit, but it's not the kind of 5 a day that we're told to eat. You might have some melon, you might have some berries. Yes, they've got bread, but so we'll move on now to the fictitious Mediterranean diet, just to get the contrast. So the fictitious Mediterranean diet is, it's plant-based, it's whole grains, it's legumes, it's loads of fruit, loads of vegetables, and it's just not. First of all, every grain that you find in the real Mediterranean is white. So French bread is that fantastic baguette, it's white. Ciabatta in Italy, it's white. Risotto rice in Spain is white. Pasta in Italy is white. Everything in the Mediterranean in grain terms is white. It is not whole grains. You might find whole grains now in a hotel, but only if Brits go there because they've been asking for whole grains, so the hotel has got round to providing it. But the indigenous population has grown up on white grains. There's no whole grains. They might include legumes in dishes, but it might be something like a lamb tagine, and it would have some apricots in there and have some chickpeas in there, but it's not a whole dish based on lentils. They don't see that as the main protein part of their meal. Yes, they'll have some fruit, but as I've just said, it's not the massive fruit that we have, and they don't snack. I'm talking about the traditional Mediterranean diet. Of course, the bad eating habits are creeping into the young people now, and they're eating, almost an American British diet. So forget those. The real Mediterranean diet would have maybe melon as a starter, maybe berries as dessert. You just often have cheese with your evening meal instead of dessert. After you've had some substantial portion of meat, yes, you would have some vegetables. Yes, you'd have some salad. But they don't have grains in the kind of proportion that we have. So in France, for example, you're much more likely to have potatoes, and then it would be potatoes with cheese on top of them. So it would be, gratin dauphinois or whatever, which is another delivery mechanism for another animal food. If you have desserts in the Mediterranean, they're very much cream and cheesy kind of base rather than high in sugar. So it's not the sort of if they have the apple pie, it's mostly apples, and then there's a little bit of pastry. It's not that sweet, but more likely you'll get things like crème anglaise, crème brûlée. What's the one that Andy likes? There's like a vanilla sort of mush thing kind of thing, but they're all cream based. They're cream and egg based, and creamy and fatty rather than sugary and carby. And those are the two diets. So there's one that is actually eaten, and then there's one that academics have invented that nobody actually eats in the Mediterranean. It's a complete fiction of the academic world, and they want to try to convince you that that's how they eat in the Mediterranean, and then that's why they live longer. They don't. They live longer because of what I've said: sunshine, work-life balance, family and faith is so important in the Mediterranean. And that counts for so much in terms of having purpose in one's life, reason for getting up in the morning, reason for integrating with one's family, etc., etc. So Mediterranean diet, another very much misunderstood concept.
Let's zone in on fruit and talk about how our modern fruit has changed and where it becomes problematic.
Yeah, I contrast modern fruit in what I see, particularly in an American supermarket. So if I go over and do a conference in America, I must admit, I love going to your supermarkets because there's just so much. I'm thinking, I want to eat all of this. It just looks amazing. Like you've got medjool dates. And then I remember that they've actually got more sugar than toffee. And I love red delicious apples when I look at them and they're all shiny and perfect and uniform and every single one looks the same and you wonder what on earth is on them that they're all shining like I could see my face in it. But that's not the fruit that I know. Having a garden that's got a lot of fruit and also living in the countryside where I can wander around on the walk in the autumn and actually pick some fruit. So, there's a couple of things going on. One is real fruit that you will find in the real environment and what that is actually like. And then there's a sort of seasonal aspect to it, which is when do we actually find that? So in the UK, and there will be parts of North America that are on our kind of latitude and have similar kind of access to fruit, you don't get any fruit in the year until about May. And then you start seeing maybe some wild strawberries and they start coming in a little bit more in June. Then the raspberries pick up June into July. Blackberries come along around sort of August into September. Apples start kicking in around August. They've got quite a good season. So you've got apples, pears. We've got a fig tree in our garden that really starts to do well around sort of August, September. Apples will still be going on. We've still got a couple of cookers in the garden and we're now into December. The eaters are mostly not there, but we've got some that we've stored with sort of newspaper in between them. So if one goes bad, it doesn't pollute all the others. So we can eat those really up until Christmas. And I've frozen a lot of blackberries that I picked in the autumn. We had a great year. So I'll be eating those into January and putting full fat yogurt with them. But then that's it. There is then no fruit for the next 5 months of the year. And yet we have this way of living at the moment. And when they're telling us, oh, we must have our 5 a day, it's a really important part of our healthy eating. Well, no, it's not. That's got no evidence base. That's just a fairy story. And it isn't natural to be eating pineapples on Christmas Day or having access to avocados at all in the UK. It's not indigenous to our population. We shouldn't be having apples all year round, let alone dates and melon and all the stuff that I could get in the supermarket today that is just not natural and it's been shipped from all over the world. This is not a good use of our resources and it's not good for our body, I think, to be eating out of season.
If you enjoyed that clip, you're going to want to head over here and catch the full episode. I'll see you over there.
The demonization of fat, the demonization of saturated fat, the demonization of cholesterol, all these things that we got wrong have just then been the bedrock of everything else that's gone wrong since. Fibre is literally many sugars of the indigestible kind.